Good evening, everyone. I'm Vice Mayor Kilgore, and I'd like to welcome you all to the June 27th City Council meeting. Mayor Manheimer is traveling to Raleigh this evening and is to attend a meeting of the North Carolina Metro Mayors Coalition. So I have the honor of presiding over the meeting tonight. Please remember to mute your cell phones, and if you'd like to speak during the meeting, please sign up with our Assistant City Clerk in the hallway outside of the chamber door. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please rise with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, tonight we have a proclamation naming July 2023 as Parks and Recreation Month. Our Parks and Recreation Director, Dee Tyrell, is here, along with others, to accept the proclamation.
Yeah, crowd in.
Whereas all Ashevilleans believe equitable and accessible parks, recreation, and active living experiences are essential and fundamental right, allowing residents to explore, connect, and discover. And whereas our community is a better and safer place with everyone from infants to retirees has the opportunity to be supported, healthy, and successful. And whereas Asheville's oldest public park dates to the 1890s, and Asheville Parks and Recreations continue to be the trusted steward of our community's shared recreation space, including hundreds of acres of parks, playgrounds, greenways, and open areas throughout the city in a system that includes full complex recreation centers, swimming pools, riverside cemetery, sports fields and courts, and community centers that offer a variety of health, wellness, education, and culture-related programs for people of all ages every day. And whereas Asheville Parks and Recreation addresses multiple community challenges through innovative programs that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, providing therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, counter social isolation by connecting people with nature and each other, and also improves the mental and emotional health of all those who live here. And whereas Asheville's future leaders thrive on critical activities such as after-school programs, sports and summer camps, mentorships, and youth and teen programs that are critical to foster the imagination and creativity, healthy habits, teamwork, social equity, emotional stability, civic trust, and environmental responsibility. And whereas well-maintained parks placed throughout the city are adaptable infrastructure that makes the area resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change, providing sustainable environmental solutions while preserving the unique culture, natural beauty, and well-being of both legacy and emerging neighborhoods. And whereas parks and the natural areas enhance water quality, prevents flooding, improve air quality, provide vegetative buffers to developments, maintain the urban tree canopy, and produce habitats for wildlife, and also house community gardens and edible vegetation for urban foraging. And whereas Asheville Parks and Recreation is a core pillar addressing Asheville City Council's priorities of improving and expanding core services, neighborhood resilience, and reimagining public safety. Therefore, I, Esther Manheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim July 2023 as Asheville Parks and Recreation Month and encourage all of the Asheville's residents to partake and enjoy of all the parks the city has to offer. In the witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause a seal of the City of Asheville, North Carolina, to be affixed this 27th day of June 2023, signed Esther E. Manheimer.
As you can see from the proclamation, Vice Mayor, Parks and Rec does a lot. Just a few things. Vice Mayor, Council, I'm D. Tyrell McGirt. I have the pleasure of serving as the Parks and Rec Director here with the City of Asheville. Every year, the National Recreation and Park Association designates July as Parks and Recreation Month. And really what that means is it gives folk like me, Parks and Rec professionals, an opportunity to remind our elected officials, our colleagues that we work side by side with every day, as well as the communities that we're here to serve, of the importance of Parks and Rec. We like to think of ourselves as the front door to municipal operations. And so when people are thinking about quality of life, when they're thinking about places where they want to live, or a business is deciding to relocate to a place, we know that the quality of life element is an important piece. People are thinking about connectivity. Are there greenways that connect these local focus areas in the community together? Are there neighborhood parks and open spaces where people can go to that are walkable and close to where people live? And are there community centers where people can go and recreate and have things to do for themselves as well as for their families? So basically, bottom line is people are looking for things to do. The benefit of Asheville Parks and Rec is we do all that. We have healthy activities, events, and programs for all ages. So you name it, we got something for your age group. You're a senior, want to tap dance or line dance, we got you covered over at the Senior Center. So if you're a little one or you have a little one with a lot of energy ready to burn off, we got a Tiny Talks triathlon coming up that you can start training them for to participate in right now. We have a pretty comprehensive system. So you're not going to find too many places with a population our size with 10 recreation centers. These are meeting spaces where people can congregate, come together, as well as places where we can recreate and house things like after-school programs and summer camps. And we have places that build community. If you're participating in anything, Parks and Rec, people are coming together, they're enjoying themselves together, and they're building community. I think the two most important things are, though, we're able to offer all these services and programs at no cost or low cost to the people that live here in Asheville. And I gotta brag a little bit. I think the Parks and Rec professionals that are back here, staff, will y'all stand, please?
Yeah.
Are some of the best ever. And I say they're the best because not only do they care about maintaining the spaces and these facilities that Parks and Rec operate, but they care about providing good service to the people that we're here to serve. So we have a group of folk, young people here with us today. This is just a representative group of some of the people that we're here to serve. This is a group of our teens from Stevens Lee Community Center. Devin Smith is gonna say a few words on behalf of the group, but it was easier for them to walk over here to City Hall and partake, but know that we have different summer camp activities happening across the city. Devin?
Hello everyone, my name is Devin Smith. I have attended Stevens Lee Community Center programs since I was 7 years old. Through Asheville City's Parks and Recreation, I have learned so many things. Over the past 7 years, I have learned how to make salsa from our community garden where we've planted and harvested peppers. They take us on field trips, like ice skating, whitewater rafting, and even a fun-filled Washington, D.C. trip. I have learned how to sew and enjoy programming. That's helped me grow as an individual. I've also been able to volunteer with our events our center has held. I have helped with the taller events, the senior citizens prom, and I've also was a scarer at the Halloween event. One of my most thankful memories is attending the pod site. During the pandemic, having a place to go to use Wi-Fi, eat lunch, and then be able to virtually attend classes really helped during that time. I have matured so much over these past years, and I really thank Asheville Parks and Recreation for giving me a chance to grow, a chance to make new friends, a chance to learn new things. Thank you, Asheville City Council, for proclaiming July as Park and Recreation Month.
Go, Devin. I know. What is happening?
And Vice Mayor, before Mr. D. Tyrell McGirt leaves, I just wanted to thank him for his leadership. He's been with us second year?
Agreed.
Year and a half, almost second. All right, thank you.
Filled the room.
And what I'd like to add a little bit more to, when I moved back to Asheville in 2012, that was one area that I was very disappointed in. And when I joined City Council, that was one of my top priorities, was to actually try to see what I could do to help with parks. But I see I was not able to do anything but Mr. D. Tyrell. I am just amazed at what you've done in this short period of time. I mean, when you can actually see an improvement and see a difference, not only in the parks, but in the lives of the people that enjoy these festivities. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Do any council members have any questions or comment on the consent agenda?
I'd like to ask to pull item L, please. I'm happy to make a motion for the remaining items.
I second.
So a vote for all the items without item L.
Yes. Okay. So would someone like, okay,
That's motion and second, yeah.
okay, so let's take public comment. Okay, so now we're open public comment.
Looks like no one.
It's Jonathan. We
We'll
have
reload.
Jonathan
Yeah.
Wayne Scott will speak on item L.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. I was watching the agenda briefing meeting the other day because I'm kind of a weirdo like that. And I did watch the entire conversation regarding item L, which was about 13 minutes long and involved 15 people, and that was a total of 3.25 hours of human time to just flesh out that basically all we've really done is close the infinite loophole of people being able to store bicycles on city-owned bike racks. That's what we've accomplished in all of that. And now I guess the standard is you can't leave or abandon a bike, or a bike would be abandoned after a week of being on said bike rack. And the way that really works is it's complaint driven. So after 7 days, that's when the complaint is made. And then that starts the clock, and then that begins the next 7 days. So you really have 2 weeks of being able to leave your stuff somewhere thoroughly unattended. And at that point, it becomes abandoned. And there was this conversation about really needing to take a lot of effort to make sure that we do everything we can to get this abandoned stuff back to the owner. But the thing is, like, once something's abandoned, it doesn't have an owner anymore because it's abandoned, as I've said. So I kind of think that this is a big nothing burger. However, since it did crack open the conversation, I mean, there was no discussion about paying to get your stuff back, because in every other realm where you get your stuff locked up behind a lock and you need to get it back, you need to pay to get it back, whether it's getting your car out of an impound or getting your dog out of a dog pound, or getting your friend out of jail, or getting your roller skates back, and you got to leave your shoes and you got to make that exchange. And I know that this would probably cause some consternation about these poor people who have abandoned their bicycles or strollers and whatnot. But there are plenty of nonprofit agencies in town, lots of them, that could help out in this regard if they needed some cash to go get their abandoned stuff from the city lost and found. They could contact Asheville on Bikes. They would be a great source of help to get said abandoned stuff. So I'd like to kick around the notion of charging a fee for all of the expenses that are involved in taking care of all of the stuff that was abandoned for 2 weeks. And I really appreciate all of the time that was taken to drill down on this really tiny, tiny, tiny little problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That ends our public comment. And at this time, I'd like to, we have a motion and a second. So I'd like to take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose, nay.
Vice Mayor, I'm not sure if we had a motion to adopt that yet.
We did.
To adopt the full agenda, we did.
Except for L.
Yeah, just without L,
Yes.
yeah. I moved.
Oh, that's what you meant.
Okay.
And now item L?
Okay, so the motion passes, and now we turn it over to Kim.
So the reason that I'm not supporting item L as drafted, as it was mentioned in public comment, we did bring this up in our agenda briefing, but we've also talked about this before on our agenda, and we've talked about it, sending it back to Multimodal Transportation Commission. There were some new rules that were presented to the Transit Committee this week around additional transportation items that I'm concerned are linked. I do appreciate that the Multimodal Transportation Commission made a recommendation to have our policy around abandoned vehicles align similarly to with our vehicles like cars. So instead of being 48 hours, it's now 7 days. That said, I still have questions around inconsistent information around signage. How do you get back items once they've been removed? The unidentified fiscal impact. But another thing has come up since our agenda briefing, and that's my concern, that we seem to be creating a new category of misdemeanors that's unenforceable. So if the issue is that we have bike racks that are too full, I rode my bike downtown this weekend to try to better understand where all the full bike racks are. And the biggest issue I had was not being able to find a bike rack. So I feel like we're using the wrong tool, maybe like using a jackhammer to cut your grass in your front yard. If there's an issue around bike racks, maybe we need more bike racks, but maybe we're using the wrong, very heavy tool for an issue that I still don't understand why we're trying to deal with it this way. So I'm not supporting item L at this time.
Council, in our agenda briefing, we talked about moving this, at least this part forward, and then coming back to reconvene on additional things that Kim is talking about. Is there interest in doing that?
The Transit Committee has a new list of rules that's like something about you could bring a piece of equipment to carry food, but not the same equipment to carry laundry. It was kind of confusing on whether or not scooters and which types would be allowed. You could bring one bag, but not 3 bags. It's just, there's a lot of fuzzy information about how people need to move around our city. And it seems like if we're gonna have information about mobility devices and transportation equipment, we maybe need to see the whole picture on this, and involving criminal misdemeanors instead of civil fines seems a little overkill on this.
Deborah, is that also good for staff to take a little more time and come back to committee with more information, or does it help to move at least this piece forward?
I'm going to ask Brad to respond, but I do think they're two separate
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
But I will have Brad respond.
Okay.
Councilmember Turner, I would say that the proposal being brought forth to City Council is what, in my opinion, is a small addition to an existing ordinance. The existing ordinance is essentially one that prohibits abandoning or leaving for an extended period of time any personal property. There is a very reasonable, in my opinion, carve-out for bikes, strollers, and carts, as you certainly want to be able to leave those for a period of time. This matter has been put through both a city council committee as well as the multimodal committee at this point, where there's been strong support for this. We can certainly take this back as council so directs. I don't know what more information staff can provide on this issue, but the issues that Councilmember Councilmember Roney has brought up are certainly, I think, important issues. As Deborah mentioned, I think there might be some overlap, but I think that's something that staff could probably tackle separately. On this particular ordinance, it's a question of, again, providing an end date to the exception we've already carved out
Right.
for bikes, carts, and strollers. Right now, you can leave them, which is fair, but at no point into infinity would city staff be able to remove an item that's left there for an extended period of time.
Yeah, and I think that staff is working with multimodal committee on the transit aspect and what is or is not allowable. And I think, Ms. Roney, that's what you were talking about, having some level of
There's just
consistency.
still a lot of questions, and I get that it sounds like it's a strong recommendation because it was a strong number support. But I believe the strong number support I heard when I reviewed the multimodal meeting was that we extend the number of days. I still heard some of the same questions around how
Yeah,
does
we did.
one acquire your bike back? What does signage look like? There were still questions.
So I guess my question is, it doesn't, voting on this to move this part forward tonight doesn't preclude us from continuing to have those conversations, right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, in that vein, I would like to make a motion that item L be adopted.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are those opposed?
No?
Okay, we have.
Thank you.
five
I
ayes
do
and one
hope
no.
to hear more about that. I don't mean to, yeah, thank you.
So that ends our consent agenda. So at this time, we will do the presentations. Tonight, on the manager's report, we have an employee recognition, which will be done by City Manager Deborah Campbell.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am elated to have the opportunity, the second time this month, to recognize an employee for their accomplishments. And as noted, the City of Asheville employees are heroes in lots of ways. We want to acknowledge their exemplary work all the time, but especially when an employee does something extraordinary. Can you change the slide for me, please? And tonight, we recognize Kelly Cloak. Kelly, would you mind coming up? Kelly is our public information officer with the Asheville Fire Department for being unanimously voted for the award of Public Information Officer designation. Next slide. You got to hang in there with me, Rachel. We can't make Kelly advance her own slides. Kelly has been a vital member of the Asheville Fire Department since 1996. Kelly earned this professional designation witnessed by a team of peers and members of the Commission of Professional Credentialing. Kelly has demonstrated through education, leadership, and management skills that she possessed the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities required for the fire and emergency services profession. We commend your efforts, Kelly, and dedication in achieving this personal and professional milestone. Next slide, please. Kelly is responsible for the public relations work for the Asheville Fire Department. Her coordination of all media relations, in addition to preparation and dissemination of public information regarding the department, continues to be of the highest caliber. Kelly is one of only 29 public information officers with this designation internationally. I'm going to repeat that. Kelly is one of 29 information officers with this designation internationally. I want to pause there. Congratulations, Kelly, on this prestigious award in recognition for yourself, the Asheville Fire Department, and the city of Asheville. And she knows that she's one of my favorites.
Oh.
There you go.
I didn't prepare, but I will say that thank you for that. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to work for City of Asheville Fire Department, City of Asheville. It's a huge honor to represent every single day. I get so much support. I always received support, and I continue to receive some support from all of you. I work closely with Kate, and I don't think that I'd ever get to where I was today without the support of all of you, Kate, and especially Asheville Fire Department. Our firefighters are great. They provide me information, and I am able to tell our story, deliver the message to the public, to the community, keep them informed. I feel like I not only have lived here since 1994, but I've worked at the fire department since '96, so I definitely am part of this community, and I'm grateful every day that I get to work here, and I am very proud to be part of the Asheville Fire Department, City of Asheville. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to our public hearing. And the first public hearing will be... The first public hearing will be continued to the July 25th meeting. And so do I have a motion and a second to consider, continue consideration of a land use incentive grant to the Aston Flats LLC?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The second public hearing has been withdrawn from the agenda. Public hearing item C is consideration of a resolution to permanently close an unopened right-of-way adjacent to 26, 30, 34, and 38 Sunrise Drive. And tonight we have Jessica Morris, Assistant Transportation Department Director, who will do the presentation.
Good evening, council members. This is a request for a right-of-way closure on a portion of Sunrise Drive. The applicants are Mike and Emily Sewell. They are one of the residents that are adjacent to this right-of-way, and they have petitioned for this closure on behalf of themselves and several of their neighbors. So it's at 26, 30, 34, and 38 Sunrise Drive are the adjacent properties. This unopened right-of-way was originally platted as Westview Place in 1924 and also again in 2005, but was never accepted by the city. All of the homes fronting on this right-of-way have Sunrise Drive addresses and for mailing and for E911 purposes. And this essentially, this right-of-way serves as the driveways to these properties. The right-of-way will be divided among the 4 properties, and a new plat with the appropriate easements will be filed by the applicant. The orange area shows the requested area of closure, and as you can see, it is providing access to the properties adjacent. And then this is a view of the right-of-way from looking towards the east. The Technical Review Committee reviewed the request on March 20th and recommended approval of the closure, as did the Multimodal Transportation Commission on April 26th. The proposed motion is to adopt a resolution to permanently close an unopened right-of-way adjacent to 26, 30, 34, and 38 Sunrise Drive. Happy to answer any questions.
Do any council members have any questions or comments? Okay, at this time, we'll open public comment. Do we have anyone? signed
There's
up?
two. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So, and your name? Myrick, okay. Okay, thank you, Myrick. And what we'll do is move on to Emily Mascarella.
Emily, we just called you. Okay, you see it.
Did you sign up for?
Yes.
Are you Emily? Okay,
Oh,
Emily.
we're
yes.
ready for you.
Hi, well, you moved through all of your consent business very quickly. Thanks, Mayor. No Mayor today. And City Council. Really appreciate your service to our community. I'm Emily Mascarella. I'm the property owner at 26 Sunrise Drive. And I'm speaking in support of the proposed closure for a few reasons. First of all, this is not a road that the city maintains, so historically, I just biked down, honestly. Historically, all of the costs fall on the neighborhood, and so if we're gonna maintain it, we would like to own it. Secondly, all of the neighbors that have signed on to this has been a collaborative process, and what we have is a vision for open space. At any time, there's about a dozen kids that are running up and down the street, and we want a safe space for them to be able to play. Additionally, our neighbors, we like each other, and so we do get together quite often, holidays, birthday parties, Halloween, and so we envision this as additional space that we could improve and enjoy. And this has been a really good neighborhood process. Each household has contributed to the vision of what this road can be, and it's a good example of people working together to improve a place. So it's been about a year since we started this process, and it's been really nice. We've worked with multimodal, the TRC, the Board of Adjustments, and I just wanted to thank all of city staffers. Everyone's been really great to work with, and it's been a really positive experience, so thank you for that. Please vote to close this road so that our neighbors can take full advantage of the right-of-way that is kind of languishing in limbo there. We'd really like the opportunity to advance the open space in our neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next one will be Sasha Bannister.
Hi, I'm Sasha. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all today. It's nice to see you in person. I am a neighbor on 30 Sunrise, and we're so excited to ask you all to consider closing this road. I live at 30 Sunrise Drive with my husband, who's also here, and our big concern, honestly, is safety. There are a lot of kids in our neighborhood, including Emily's little daughter, who kind of, spend a lot of time in what is right now kind of a gray space. We don't ever know who's going to come down that road, and people who aren't familiar with the road can't actually understand that there is a little bit of a hill or a bump that precludes vision. So if a unknown vehicle were to come through, they may not actually have full visibility to see the kids at play, right? And I think that increases the risk that we have in our neighborhood, and the same is true for the egress. So because of that little limited visibility, we'd love to keep that road really restricted so that there's not a ton of through traffic, so that we can maintain and preserve that safety. And then the last thing I'll say is that this really has been a joint effort. We moved in 2020, and we all kind of chip in, all the houses here and all the neighbors here chip in to really jointly maintain the aesthetics of the road and the safety of the road as well. So we'd love for you to consider this, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Sandra, I'm ready to make a motion if anyone.
Well, this closes the public hearing at this time, and now, if someone would like to make a motion in a second?
I move to adopt a resolution to permanently close an unopened right-of-way adjacent to 26, 30, 34, and 38 Sunrise Drive.
I second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Okay, ayes carry.
Invite us to the block party.
At this time, we'll move on to public hearing item D, which is conditionally zoned 319 Biltmore Avenue, from regional business district to residential expansion / conditional zone. Tonight, we have Clay Mitchell, Urban Planner 2, to present the item to City Council.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, councilors. I'm presenting to you a petition for conditional zoning of property that is historically addressed 311 and 319 Biltmore Avenue. I believe this is the former location of a Ford dealership. This property is now owned by the city of Asheville, and the applicant is Laurel Street, who is here with us this evening, and I think has a brief presentation to append to mine, but I will walk you through the details of the application. This is the aerial imagery of the site. Oh, I'm done.
If only.
You can see the recent development that has occurred to the west of the site. John Walker Avenue has now been constructed between the two parcels. Both the north and the south parcel are the subject of this application. The current zoning is regional business. There's quite a bit of zoning activity out here, office business, institutional. The proposed rezone is residential expansion, necessary because of the number of units on the site proposed at 221. In the future land use, again, you see that there's multiple designations. Staff feels that the downtown designation, this development is consistent with that. It borders the institutional center to the south, traditional neighborhood a bit to the east, and traditional neighborhood to the west. Downtown future land use calls for dense development, particularly multiple housing types as well as affordable housing. This is the overall site plan of the site. You see on the north, both buildings are raised one-story, surface lots underneath each building, and then external to the southern building where the parcel has more room, you see an exposed surface lot to provide the overall parking for both buildings. These buildings operate as one despite the separation created by John Walker Avenue. There's some retaining walls, that purple line, to bring the site up to grade to support the surface lot that also allows for the increased parking. During the review process, there was a lot of focus on establishing and enhancing the connection, because given the unit counts, there will be people in the north building that will likely be using the southern parcel for parking for themselves and as well potentially visitors. There's 102 units in the north building, 119 in the south. Sidewalks are proposed internal to the site, some upgrades along John Walker Avenue as well as Lee Garden, consistent with the existing sidewalks that are out there. Internal sidewalks to the site will vary between 5 and 10 feet and are part of the technical modifications. I will save the discussion on sidewalks along Biltmore Avenue because it's a fairly complex situation. The landscaping and open space plan, this is the revised plan following several components of the review. What I wanted to point out, over plan left on the west side of the parcels, the applicant has developed a much more attentive treatment of the connection of that southern parking lot with the northern building. You can see a sidewalk. That sidewalk is framed with some pretty aggressive landscaping. On the northern parcel, you see another sidewalk that has been added, which is also includes some activation. The western side of the building will actually have entrances for some of the units on the ground floor to create kind of a porch-like atmosphere so that the building actually interfaces with Lee Garden. And I'll show you more details along John Walker Avenue and Biltmore as well. This is the details of the building. What you're seeing here on the plan left is the courtyard. The northern building above the parking is actually kind of a giant elongated C open to the sky. And at the roof portion of the parking lot is a very well-developed courtyard with a lot of programming in it. There's provisions for an outdoor movie theater, there's sports courts, there's a lot of tables and seating. That plays into the overall kind of connection of the two buildings because that's amenity space that's for residents of both the northern and the southern building. On the top right is the northern building, and what you see in the red is the amenity space. Again, for both buildings, this is mailroom, fitness, conference rooms, the leasing office. On the southern building, what you see in that pink color, I believe it's pink, is separate leasable space. That leasable space will activate both along Biltmore Ave and curve around on John Walker to provide an opportunity for non-residential uses that we hope can be brought into the site to serve this community and the growing residential uses in the area. The blue are internal and external bicycle parking. So there's more than compliant bicycle parking along the surface, and then each floor of the building has its own internal bicycle storage for the residents. These are the elevations. This is the north view of the north building on the bottom, and the south view of the north building is, if you're on John Walker Way and you're looking, the shading changes because that courtyard is there. So that middle portion of the building is set back, while on each end, the building comes in fronts directly along John Walker. You see the activation on the far right side with the glass and the glazing and the doors to access the amenity space. The southern building is a monolithic building. It does not have a courtyard. You can see most important on this is the left side of the upper rendering shows you how that separate leasable space will curve around and activate on John Walker Avenue as well as the entire frontage of Biltmore Avenue. These are the Biltmore Avenue frontage. You can see the windows and the doorways, the activation. Again, this was an important part of our discussions with the applicant. On the right side of the plans is access to the below building parking. This is a rendering of that courtyard area. One of the conditions in the technical modifications is really enhancing the appearance of the connection. And so a high visibility crosswalk is proposed, as well as a very low speed table. The speed limits out there on these roadways are already 15 miles an hour, so they're very low. There's on-street parking, the bump outs. All of this is about bringing traffic slowly into the site and affirming the connection between the two buildings. And you can see how the crosswalks lead to a stairwell immediately up into the courtyard area, and the whole kind of feel of the area is to try and draw these two buildings together and have them be connected, but including John Walker Avenue. So some technical modifications. This project will include a 30% affordability with 20% at 60% AMI, there's a lot of numbers, or below, and then another 10% at 80% AMI or below. So total will be 30% broken into those two numbers. The 5-foot sidewalks are going to be internal to the site to reduce impervious surface. It's an appropriate width for an internal sidewalk. Lee Garden Lane already has brand new sidewalks on a portion of it, so they are going to match those existing sidewalks along the small portion where they're not constructed. There is some reduction in the setbacks, which allowed the developer to achieve that connection with John Walker Avenue, as well as with some of the corner setbacks. No bike lanes are provided on the roadway or into the development, and in this case, we had discussions with the transportation department, and because of the reduced speed limit, the traffic engineering standards do not usually call for bike lanes. And when we discussed the concept of sharrows, they are also likewise not recommended because of the shortness of the roadways and the amount of signage that's already there. So we explored that opportunity, but hearing that and understanding what the recommended engineering standards are, they're not going to be separate facilities for bicycles along those roadways. Now, the sidewalk along Biltmore Avenue. There is a lot of discussion about a project that may impact the intersection of Biltmore Avenue and John Walker. The best way we could approach this, giving the balance of issues, the developer needs to know what sidewalk to build and where, and the city has to work with DOT to get plans. We don't know what it's going to be, so we've created this three-part matrix to try and balance the issues. And basically it works like this. If plans can be produced within a certain amount of time to the developer will accommodate those plans and build a 10-foot wide sidewalk. So if plans come forward and the curb line is not going to move, they will build a 10-foot sidewalk along Biltmore Avenue. If the road is going to move and the plans are produced for the developer will build a 10-foot sidewalk where the road is ultimately going to be located. If no plans and nothing is cemented in time, in a reasonable amount of time, the end of the year, then what the applicant will do will be restore the existing 8-foot sidewalk along Biltmore Avenue. We considered all the options, and the reason we chose this is the idea that the developer would go out there and create this city-compliant sidewalk for it to be torn up within 2 years seemed to be a colossal waste of energy and money. And so this was what we thought was the best way to kind of balance that. This was reviewed by transportation, and hopefully we'll be able to get some plans to the developer so that they can respond to that. There's been no resistance to any of this. The developer has been very willing to work with us, but the idea that they would have to come back 4 or 5 years later and build a sidewalk is not something that is really feasible at this point. The other conditions relate to that high visibility crosswalk to create that connection, and then some small conditions related to signage. Completed neighborhood review, technical review committee approved this with conditions on April 17th. It had 2 visits to the Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately was approved with minor conditions, particularly those sidewalk debate or issue in June 7th. And here we are before the council today. We find that this project meets multiple goals and consistency. It encourages responsible growth. This is infill development. We're going from a site that had up to 90% impervious surfaces down to 59%, while also providing 221 units of housing. It increases that supply of housing. It diversifies our housing types, but both market rate and affordability. Another thing that's interesting about this project is it includes 3-bedroom units, which are fairly unique in the rental market and will provide an opportunity for families. And obviously all of that points to promoting the development and availability of workforce housing. We find it consistent with the downtown designation in the comprehensive plan because it provides year-round residence. It does have that separate leasable space. There is a small component of mixed use, but it's right at that southern border of the downtown area, definitely accessible both by walking and car to other parts. There are public transportation stops along Biltmore Avenue, so it's a great place for this kind of development to occur. Accordingly, we concur with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommend that you approve this proposed zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. At this time, I'd like to ask if the developer would like to say a few words.
Good evening, Council, Madam Vice Chair, Madam City Manager. Thank you all for having us today. I'm Deon Nelson. I'm President and CEO of Laurel Street. It's actually really good to be with you all in person. It's been a long time coming here. Today I have with me colleagues with me from Laurel Street, Tisha Germany, who's the Development Director for this project. She also will be presenting with me tonight, and Carice Presley, who serves as the Development Manager for the project. as well as our civil design team, Civil Design Concepts, who have supported our efforts in this rezoning matter over the last several months. And we're happy to present a few slides, but also answer any questions that you may have. As you know, Laurel Street has been working with staff for some time here. We are a North Carolina-based firm that specifically focuses on developing high-quality mixed-income housing for working families and seniors that are affordable to households at a variety of incomes. But our particular specialty is providing housing that will always include units that are affordable to households at the median income and below. So you will never see Laurel Street develop a 100% market rate development. So we're pleased to be bringing that product to the Asheville market. We've been talking about this project for a number of really years and have been very excited to make more recent progress with city staff and council to move this development forward. In February of 2022, the city of Asheville and Laurel Street executed our letter of intent to develop this site. We committed to doing a minimum of 200 units and a minimum amount of affordability of to have 20% of our units at 60% AMI. We then proceeded to work with staff, and council approved a purchase and sale agreement in August of 2022 for this site. And at that time, our development plans had continued to progress, and we were looking at a minimum of 215 units. And then we increased the affordability commitment from 20% to 30%. 20% of the units at 60% AMI and 10% of the units at 80% AMI. In November of 2022, we commenced the rezoning process with the city of Asheville, and as staff just reported, we achieved that planning and zoning approval in June of 2023. The project has continued to evolve, and we're excited about what we are putting forth today as the final plan for this development. As it stands, the development will be 221 units, continue to increase the density with 11 studio units, 108 one-bedroom units, 72 two-bedroom units, and 33 bedroom units. That equates to 353 bedrooms. So as many developers will develop an all-studio development or studios and ones, et cetera, when you look at our unit count, you really also have to consider the fact that the mix of ones, twos, and threes equates to the equivalent of a 353-unit, one-bedroom development. Our income mix, as I just described, includes 30% affordability and 70% market rate. In addition to that, we have committed to and requested with the Asheville Housing Authority for at least 21 project-based vouchers that would allow us to serve 30% AMI families within the community. So again, having a true mixed income community that will serve households that range from 30% of the median income all the way up to market rate. Our affordability will also be distributed evenly across our unit types. So we are assuming that we will have an even mix of affordable units across the studios, the ones and the two and the three bedrooms, so that low to moderate income households of varying household sizes will have an opportunity to live in the community. We have commercial space that we have increased in large part based on feedback from staff in the community to 2,600 square feet, and we look forward to working with to provide needed services in those commercial units. And our parking count is at approximately 250 spaces. I would also like to highlight that this is what I describe as a workforce housing development, not a LIHTC development. So our affordability is being brought to you through privately financed development that would include private equity and a HUD commercial real estate loan. And the significance of that is the more certainty we can bring to the market. We are not in a competitive transaction to identify the financing for the project, and we are prepared to move forward immediately if we obtain your approval. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Tisha Germany, who's going to talk a little bit more about design and some of the features of the building. Happy to answer any question when she wraps up.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to speak to, as Dion said, everyone in person. I've talked to some of you by Zoom. Can you hear me? I'm short. Than Dion. So I apologize for that. Clay did do a great job in kind of discussing this rendering already. But I just wanted to point out a few things about this picture. One of the things that we wanted to be able to emphasize is the activation of John Walker, as you can see here, and also how what someone's viewpoint would be when they're walking down John Walker. The ability to enter into the structured parking that's on the one level, and also to be able to cross safely through that area, and also how the open area that was mentioned already, how it interacts with the street. How you can see there, there will be 2 sets of stairs to get up and down from the open area to John Walker, so that it's open to the residents in either side of the building. And also how both buildings will interact with Biltmore Avenue. And then on the far side of the building, if you can see my cursor there, each of these floors will have a kind of resident gathering space on each floor that will be able to be highlighted and with a nice view to the street. Some of the active amenity areas that are available in the project as a whole will be providing on-site leasing space, the multi-purpose rooms and areas that I mentioned before. Both buildings will have fitness centers in them, so that if you're in building 2, you don't have to cross the street in the wintertime to be able to go walk to work out. We're looking at different ways to have a cafe. There'll be mail and package rooms in both buildings, bike storage, as Clay mentioned, in both buildings. And there'll be ability to have that in the parking area, but also on the upper floors, and this active outdoor space. This is a blow up of the outdoor space that you saw here, right here. And this kind of gives you an idea of what we're envisioning for this green space here. This area here with these doors you see here will be resident homes, but we thought it would be a good idea to give them a little bit of privacy, so that we have green space and planting here to kind of shield them from the active space that happens in this area. There'll be an available area for your dog walking, this kind of counter cafe area to work from, then some active spaces here, and as Clay mentioned, possibly an area for a movie night or some other programming space to have there. And that is the end of that piece. Oh, one more thing, the schedule. So what we're proposing after our meeting this evening is that we would go back and work towards our site plan approval with our partner at CDC for the 3rd quarter. We're looking to close this project at the end of this year. And as soon as we finish closing, we would commence construction. And we believe that would take about 2 years to complete and then lease up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm ready for questions.
I do have a couple.
Go ahead.
I think you answered it. This might be for the developer, Clay.
Okay.
Across the 3 bedrooms, I just want to make sure I heard this right. There are going to be affordable options across the 3 bedrooms as well.
Yes.
That's a remarkable thing, I think, and it's worth saying again. And for years in this community, at all of our committee meetings about housing and affordability, we've heard this statement echoing that we don't have enough family size units in general, and then we don't have enough family size units that are affordable. So I just really wanted to highlight that and say thank you for noticing that. And I hope this is okay to say, but it is really wonderful to see women in real estate development at this podium for a change, and I hope that's okay to say, but I really appreciate that component, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Maybe there's no surprise that that's why we're getting more family units.
Exactly. That's true. That's true.
I did have some questions, but I feel like I'd rather hear public comment first.
Yeah.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to open public hearing.
Looks like Whitley.
Speakers. Okay. The first speaker will be Whitley English.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, Council. Thank you for granting me the opportunity to speak. My name is Whitley English. I'm a community health worker, violence prevention professional. I currently sit on the board of Just Economics, and I am also a resident of Maple Crest. As a resident of Asheville all my life, I am here to give input on the development of 319. I strongly believe that the commercial space on this property should be reserved for a community resource center, specifically catering to child care services. Additionally, our community would greatly benefit from a fresh fruits and vegetable market. Furthermore, this development could use additional recreational space for children. For example, it would be beneficial to have a basketball court, considering the old Lee Walker Heights had a basketball court, but it was not put back. In addition to these amenities, a dog park, which I see will be available, would be also beneficial. And an extended playground for the children would also be highly recommended. We currently have one swing, one regular swing, one handicap swing. We have over 200 children in Maple Crest. That is not enough for our kids. And we have multiple ages of children, so the one that we have is like a preschool area for kids. So that's definitely a need. Considering this, it falls short for the community's needs. Moreover, I would like to express my intention to no longer rely on vouchers for housing. If more units were available at 60% area median income, it would be making me find a place to live easier as I advance economically and transition away from public housing. Thank you guys for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Jen Hampton.
Hi, y'all. My name's Jen Hampton, and I am the Housing and Wages Organizer at Just Economics. Just Economics is working on affordable housing with one of our focuses being city and county-owned land. This is a newer aspect of our work, and we applaud the city's 2019 policy for implementing affordable housing on city-owned land. As this is the last stop at council for 319 Biltmore, I wanted to offer public comment on behalf of Just Economics. While we are excited for this developer to build in our community and appreciate various aspects of this development, we believe there is an opportunity to ensure that the property at 319 Biltmore is being used for the greatest benefit of this community. Between the purchase of the property and the site improvements, the city spent close to $6 million of our tax money on this property. And this is a significant subsidy to the developer, and it is in the best interest of this community to make sure that this community investment yields positive results. I want to offer two primary comments on this property. First off, in regards to affordability, the 2019 policy says when developing city property, it is the city's baseline goal to obtain a minimum of 20% of total units as affordable to and occupied by households at or below 60% AMI, and to accept housing choice vouchers, which I'm really excited that they're going to be doing, by the way, across the various sizes of apartments. That's pretty awesome. While all units should accept vouchers according to the policy, there is a difference between accepting vouchers and having set-asides for voucher holders. We support a set-aside for voucher holders so as to serve people making between 30 to 50% FAMI. Additionally, this developer has agreed to an additional 10% of the units affordable to individuals at 80% AMI. The new AMI numbers were recently released by HUD, and the AMI for a single individual will be $59,500, which means that 80% will soon be supporting people who make around $47,000 a year, or $22.88 an hour for a full-time worker. We believe that we aren't really getting at affordability for much of our working class until we are at 60% AMI. So our suggestion is that 10% of the units that were designated at 80% AMI would be set aside for voucher holders, so that we have 20% of the units available to people making 60% AMI and 10% set aside for voucher holders. And additionally, we hope that you will do everything in your power to encourage or require the retail space to be committed to certain amenities that are greatly needed, like Whitley mentioned. Those things are really greatly needed, and that's it. Thank you so much. That was my last thing.
Our next speaker will be Vicki Meats.
Hello, Council. I'm Vicki Meath. I live in West Asheville, and I'm the Director of Just Economics. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things that Jen just mentioned. And first of all, saying that, I really am glad and hopeful that this developer is going to be developing in our community. I think there's a lot of things to celebrate about this development. I think, as Councilwoman Turner pointed out, the mix of different units at affordability rates is really great. And so I think there's a lot of things to celebrate, like I said. I think from our perspective, we are just with this development and then all of the future kind of developments that happen on city-owned land, it's a good practice to be using that for affordable housing, to be thinking about how we are getting at real affordability. So again, there's a difference between voucher set-asides and voucher acceptance. It looks like in your policy that it says that all the units should accept vouchers. And what I hear from the developer is that there's some set-asides for vouchers. So we think that that's awesome. Our just request is that those set-asides come out of the 80% AMI units, because at 80% we're not really getting at affordability in this community. That 80% is like Jen mentioned, is almost $23 an hour if you're working full time, and a lot of our service workers and retail workers aren't at that level. So our hope is that you're just for this development and then future developments that we do on city-owned land, and as we're using that practice to advance affordable housing in our community, that we're considering how do we get the greatest benefit and for our community? How do we make sure that when we're talking about affordable units, that we're making sure that that we're talking about 60% or below, and we're getting at true affordability in our community. Thank you so much for your consideration. We're excited about this project. Again, support that this developer, and yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. This is the end of our public hearing, and at this time, would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, before we make a motion, now that struck some things that I had in mind. So I had 4 curiosities. One was around the depth of affordability and what could be done around the 10%. The second one was the use of commercial space, which has already been addressed. But I think when we're looking at like the proximity to Maple Crest and what this means for a whole resilient neighborhood, while we're using land to subsidize housing development, the other 2 are, I heard a request that seemed to make sense and may address some of the infrastructure needs, is the city's current water meter is like smack dab in the entranceway, and there was a request, could we move it to the north side of the building and better activate that space, make it more accessible, and provide some more leverage for the developer around sidewalk issues? And that's a question I have for staff. Has that been considered? It seems small but mighty if we could move our own water meter, if that's what's really creating problems with the street side activation.
That is, I have to be honest, I'm not entirely sure about that. I can get back to you on that. I do know that was a discussion with the water department, but I'm not sure if anyone.
It could mean moving the more expansion of the building space. I know there was the question about DOT. You've already tried really hard to navigate that murky situation. I just want to make sure if we're getting in our way of the best use of space and increasing public space and having bike racks and making it truly like fit into the fabric of downtown's walkability and bikeability, we should maybe move our water meter.
So that very question, Warren Suggs, Civil Design Concepts. The water meter question just came up in the last few weeks, and I think we've already looked at it. There's some ability to move that around to the north side of the building and get it a little out of the front there.
Is there anything that we need to do on this end today to make that possible, or it's flexible?
I think we can be flexible and do that as part of the final design on it. It's not something that's tied to the exact placement of the CZ. components like that can move around. Just
Okay.
work with staff.
Yeah.
And then the fourth thing was, as I always ask, I've been asking at every single development, especially of housing, what can we do around renewable energy to ensure our neighborhoods are resilient? And because I've been asking regularly, I understood that Maple Crest that was part of the decision for them to add the solar panels, and I got to go with my colleague Antoinette Mosley and one of my students and turn on the solar panels at Maple Crest. And my understanding was that it would add to either the depth and or longevity of affordability. So I have to ask, is it possible to look at solar for this location and or while it's being designed, consider it for future so that the roof isn't filled up with other things?
Thank you, Counselor, for that question, and I appreciate it, as you know. I have discussed this issue with the folks at Laurel Street, and their intent is to prepare the site not only for EV chargers, because that's the market of the future, but also for renewable energy on the roof. And I have highlighted that the critical nature of locating any equipment that's on the roof to maximize the ability. And I've also offered to facilitate a discussion with other developers who have done solar in North Carolina on these types of buildings. To my knowledge, they have not done that yet in North Carolina, so this could be a matter of first impression for them. One thing they are committing to is they're constructing this building to the National Green Building Standard, which is it's like most people are familiar with the LEED process. This is another green building standard that has independent verification, certification. It has the levels bronze, silver, gold, and their top level is called emerald. When I discussed that with them a little bit more, I dug into some of the numbers on what that means in terms of greenhouse gas offsets. And I also discussed with them whether they were intending to connect to natural gas. They are not. This is going to be an electrified building. If it is built to the bronze standard, by my rough calculations, when you include electrification versus gas facilities, it's a reduction of 30 tons of greenhouse gas carbon equivalents, which is roughly the equivalent of the offsets of the solar array at fire station number 10. If they go to the silver standard, they would be offsetting about 87 tons of carbon per year, which is the equivalent of both the ART station as well as Burton Street Community Solar. So they're kind of attacking this climate change issue from both directions. And I hope to be a part of them and that this become a tradition that we work with developers to look at the opportunities for renewable energy, but they are already implementing energy efficiency measures, which I find to be compelling because of the concept of the split incentive, right? You do efficiency for a tenant, you don't get the payback, the tenant does. And the energy burden in North Carolina is pretty steep. The average household in North Carolina spends roughly $2,000 per year on energy. Obviously, that will be reduced in a multifamily setting, but with the application of this green building standard, not only do you get carbon reductions, but you also get a reduction in energy burden, which is a long time benefit.
Thank you so much. Maybe one day we'll have this as a community benefits table and I won't have to bring it up for each one.
I look forward to that day. Not because I don't want to bring it up.
But I think it's a great opportunity for community awareness, and it certainly adds to my understanding, so thank you. I do still have the outstanding questions. I know that this neighborhood has been suffering from food desert and food apartheid due to the impacts of urban renewal and redlining, and I know the community is really eager for food access, and I heard that tonight. So I don't know if there are commitments that can be made, but I share that eagerness.
That nature of use was repeatedly discussed at every step of the planning process with Laurel Street. And I feel that they are committed to do their best to try and lease up that space and that for that type of use. But I don't know, I'm at a loss for requiring a commitment on if the space stays empty and the market doesn't support it.
And then is the question about the the voucher set-asides for the 80% AMI, is that possible?
I'm going to defer.
So if you will recall in one of the earlier slides, when we first came to the table with the concept for this development, we were at 20% of the units at 60% AMI. Part of our work between February and August was to try to increase the total affordability of the development. And so we leveraged the fact that we were going to request vouchers. So the financial modeling of the development as it currently stands, leverage using voucher rents in the 60% AMI units so that we could increase the amount of total affordability. So technically, yes, we could switch the set aside from the 60s to the 80s, but effectively what you would be doing, given the way we have underwritten this development, was we would have to come back to you and ask to reduce the amount of total affordability.
I follow that, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're helping me recall that, just for background for those in the room or listening in the public comments, when we have a land disposition policy, so when the city owns land, we have to vote as a council to allow that land to be sold or deeded, gifted, and right then is our moment to get the affordability criteria, and that's based on some state rules too, as I understand it. So that's helpful because you're reminding me that you actually didn't have that extra 10% when we did that, and that has been an addition. I hear the call for the greater AMIs, but I think your explanation is spot on, yeah.
We use we are leveraging the vouchers to do two things. One, increase the total affordability, but also increase the access of the community to household at a deeper level of affordability. So how could we make, the call we were responding to initially was how could we make the community a place for residents across the entire income spectrum and increase total affordability, which we did in collaboration with staff. We cannot make that switch now and maintain the same commitments.
Totally understood.
With respect to the retail and commercial space, I appreciate the feedback from the community. We will make every effort to lease that space to users that will provide goods or services that are beneficial to the community. But part of where we landed in terms of the amount of total square footage in terms of retail and commercial was also in collaboration with staff to manage the funding request of the city. If we were to have done something significantly more robust with respect to commercial uses, that also would have increased our subsidy ask. And so we were trying to balance the needs of the community with also bringing council a project proposal that accomplished as many of the goals as we possibly could, but balanced with the dollars and the investment of subsidy into the community. So we would have to ask you for more. We would be asking for a check on top of the free land.
I think that's part of the conversation the community needs to hear us have.
Yeah.
If we were willing to go a little bit higher, a little bit wider, a little bit deeper in our pockets, when we're making these kinds of decisions, could we get a better product? This is already meeting a lot of the needs our community has.
I agree. I was thinking, we're hearing lots of big words in the room, the bonds. I know there's been discussion of a 2024 affordable housing bond. I'm personally hoping we move in that direction. So when we talk about the bond monies and how they're implemented in our community, I think it's really important we talk about the big picture. And I think what we're hearing here today is great explanations of how this project is coming together. And as a city, we have really 3 tools in our toolbox of how we partner to get affordability. We sometimes do these housing trust fund loans, which are these low interest loans to help them get built. It's capped around $1 million, I think, so it's never enough to do a whole project. We do these, what you may have heard us call LUIG, L-U-I-G, land use incentive grants, where we rebate back future tax dollars if the development can create 20% of the units at 80 AMI. And similarly, that housing trust fund loan also ties to 80% or 20% of the units at 80 AMI. And they're always over 20 years. So in this case, we're using the last tool that we have, and it's kind of new to us. It's only our second time, if I recall, where we're leveraging land that we own. And we're getting a longer term, 30 years. We're getting more percentage of affordability, 30% of the units. So all in all, I think it's staying under the cap that we place. I think our cap is $80,000 per unit that we try and say, this is what we're willing to put forth in subsidy. And when we do that, it's for 20 years. And we're doing that here, but for 30 years. So all in all, that's a lot of math and numbers, and the media will probably spell it out really well. But we do need to understand the impacts of these bonds in our community, and I'm excited to see how this one has come together in the end. I do hear the request for the childcare and food sources, so just echoing that support. I know there's a statewide crisis around childcare right now, and it'd probably be going a long way to have it on site. But yeah, so great. I'm excited, and I'm happy to make a motion. When we're all-
Please let me
Yeah,
make this
I will.
motion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So if we want to have any other comments, I think Antoinette's going to make the motion.
No, I am really thrilled and proud and honored to make the motion for such a great development team. I move to approve the conditional zoning request for the property located at 319 and 311 Biltmore Avenue from residential business to residential expansion conditional zone, and find that the request is reasonable, is in the public interest, is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meets the development needs of the community, in that the request, 1, provides infill development in targeted growth areas, 2, increases the supply of affordable housing in proximity to schools, transit, parks, and 3, promotes the development and availability of affordable and workforce housing.
Okay,
Happy to second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay? Okay, the ordinance passed.
Thank you, and happy birthday, Clay.
Thank you.
And at this time, we'll move on to unfinished business, and we do not have any unfinished business, so we'll continue on to our new business. We have one item for new business on the agenda tonight, resolution to temporarily suspend consideration of micro apartment applications and awards for the Land Use Incentive Grant Program until the policy is revised and includes standards for micro apartment projects. And we will hear Sasha Batuski at this time.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor and members of council. I do want to just say that was great. Thank you so much for supporting that project. It's been Nikki, myself, and the city manager have been working for years on that, so it's very exciting.
Congrats to you as well.
So yes, we are here to talk about policy considerations for micro apartment applications. Just a few key takeaways. First, so the Housing and Community Development Committee requested in February that the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, AHAC, review our Luigi policy as it relates to micro apartments. And AHAC recommended delaying consideration of any more applications until the policy is reconsidered and revised. And in alignment, staff is recommending the same, to temporarily suspend consideration of those applications. And in May, HCD voted 2-0 in support of that recommendation. So just a little bit of background first. The current policy is silent on micro apartments. These apartments are typically much smaller than even a studio or an efficiency, so 250 to 400 square feet, where a studio might be 400 to 650 square feet, and then a one-bedroom, 600, 650 and up. We have an Appendix 1, which is the rents that we kind of give to all our developers and folks who are getting subsidies and or doing affordable housing out of conditional zoning commitments. And we have rents for studios, but we don't have any rents for micro apartments in that appendix. So it's not something we've ever really dealt with before, and from that perspective. In February, HCD looked at this application for 46 Aston Street, a project of 231 units, 47 of them being affordable, and that's when they asked HCD to look at the policy. That application will be coming to you in a month, on July 25th. And that was at the Policy and Finance and HR Committee this afternoon. So now 6 of the 7 members of council have seen that project.
but not everyone. So again, just HCD asked AHAC to make some recommendation about this micro apartment projects and the Luigi policy. AHAC spent a lot of time and consideration on this issue and looked at different angles. And they recommended a temporary suspension of the reviews. We are about to embark on an affordable housing plan at the end of this summer in August. And the Luigi policy will be a part of that evaluation of our projects and programs. And we're asking our consultants to look at how we should be changing what we're doing. And in the big picture, how should we be spending our limited resources on affordable housing? So we will have some outside expertise to help us with some of these considerations. So at AHAC in May outlined their recommendation and their concerns around Luigi incentives and micro apartments. So here were their concerns. Should we be adjusting Luigi incentives to account for smaller unit size? Does a smaller unit size and a shared kitchen concept meet the needs of those seeking affordable housing? They noted that micro-housing rents in other cities appear to be substantially below market rents or more affordable, and so there's this question of, do these projects really need the incentives? And then there was a question of whether or not these micro-apartments meet qualifications for vouchers, HUD or VA vouchers, and they do. We've confirmed that, and the developer confirmed that, and we have as well. So AHAC recommended developing micro-housing policy recommendations as a part of the overall review of the policy. And in the meantime, they're suggesting that we defer decisions on that. And they approved that 12-0 in May at their meeting. Sorry. Okay. And then HCD heard this recommendation in May, as I said earlier, and voted 3-0 to support a temporary ban. And at the same meeting, HCD indicated they'd like to consider the 46 Aston micro apartments at their next meeting. So they did that just last week, and then it was at Policy, Finance, and HR today. So, pros of approving this recommendation to put a temporary pause on consideration. It'll allow us to have the opportunity to look at the policy objectively without a deadline on a specific project. A pause will also allow a more comprehensive review of how our city resources are being used. And as I said earlier, consultants for the plan will be able to help us parse through all the issues. There's no fiscal impact of this action, and this is our recommended motion. And I think it goes back to key takeaways, but I'm happy to entertain any questions. I know I'm talking fast.
Curiosity around, one of the things that you mentioned was a temporary, I heard the word ban, but I saw the word pause.
And I hope I didn't say ban, because I'm not.
Am I hearing it? But I was also realizing that you can still build micro units in Asheville. We're just talking about pausing whether or not we would use taxpayer dollars to subsidize them.
Correct.
So just for everyone listening and reviewing, it doesn't mean that they can't move forward.
Yes.
And that they could use other tools.
Good point.
But this is different than a moratorium of sorts. Like,
Correct.
we can't just say we want to pause hotels. We're talking about pausing an application process because it's missing some language in a current ordinance.
Right, and so just to be super clear, the Land Use Incentive Grant Program is not a by right kind of thing, right? So it is something the city of Asheville came up with on its own. It's something it's totally at council's discretion. The amount of the grant is at your discretion, the amount of years, all of those things are at your discretion. It's different than a development application where we have a published ordinance and we have said, here are the rules, and we can't really force people to go above and beyond the rules. So it's very,
and
it's
as a tool, I hear our community speaking often to, why can't we have rent control? We're limited to what we can do in the state of North Carolina, and this tool works effectively kind of like that because it sets rents at a percentage for a period of time. So we want tools like this, but I think if our community has some more understanding, as we get into the weeds of how this works, the outcomes we want, certainly the equitable outcomes our community expects, I think that'll help if we understand that, one, it's not a necessary tool, but it's a tool that our community is looking for us to use wisely.
I just have one clarifying comment for my colleagues. When we the slide was up that said HCD passed this 2-1. I was one of the two, and my intention there was not to thwart the project we have in the queue. To me, when we take on a new change, it's not about the existing applications, it's about those that might come after the change. And that's a very big difference to me, so I just want to make sure that was known for you all. That was why I supported the pause for future applications, not the one that had already been applied for.
And the one that we're doing now.
We'll talk about that one next month, yeah.
So I guess a question to teammates on HCD, like, or, you know, who were part of the Affordable Housing Committee, I guess is like the fundamental question if micro units will result in being affordable. Because, you know, I think like some of what I'm understanding with the micro units is you make them micro because it's just cheaper and therefore the units can go less. And so the committee's not sure if that's going to play out. Like, I guess I'm trying to get to like the policy philosophy between the
So part
pause.
of the issue is, one of the questions you have is in fact an open question. And until we get that studied, we won't necessarily know the answers. So it's a pause, not related to any project in particular, to study that to see how it could fit into our revised policy. It's a policy that we're considering revisions throughout. And since we have never considered or contemplated micro units, the request is that those types of units be considered. Does that help explain?
To like get more granularity in
Because
the policy.
there are several questions. One of the questions is a micro unit a naturally occurring affordable unit such that an incentive would not be needed? Because the purpose of Luigi, remember, isn't to help get a development built. Is to subsidize affordability per unit. So the question then becomes, and I don't know if it's philosophical or not, if a unit is already affordable, then do we provide a grant? I don't know the answer to that yet.
I think this is the point of the pause, right? So there's a gap in our policy. It hadn't come to us. This is actually the second micro unit application, and the first one was granted a Louise, and it hasn't been built. We don't know how it's gone. And, you know, a general reminder that HCD is the pilot for this boards and commissions rollout kind of idea, where we will go to a committee and say, we'd like specific input on this, and that's what's happened here. So we've gone to AHAC. They considered it over several months, if I recall, and came back to say, we really this needs more investigation, it needs more research, it needs more understanding. Does the market need this? You know, all we have right now are our affordable housing studies. I shouldn't say that like they're limited. They're great, they're robust, and they say that the biggest need in our community is an efficiency space, single resident occupancy. Now, whether or not that is shared community space, we never studied that. We have no direction in a study somewhere on that. So taking time to evaluate it makes sense.
And also to see if there's a market, quite frankly, for this type of unit.
If there's demand.
Don't know that either.
That's really helpful
I
to hear.
suspect there
I
is.
appreciate you sharing it. You know, 'cause part of what comes to mind with this is I just feel like these micro units are a creative experiment that I really want to see how it turns out. Because we know that expensive single-family units are not going to help us in this problem, and we know that 15-story hyper dense apartments don't fit everywhere. And so I'm very excited, and I think it's important for government to nurture certain experiments if it could break through an innovation in the marketplace to help us solve this problem. So, you know, I don't want to necessarily put up brakes, because I think it's okay to take risks sometimes to see if we can use government intervention to make things better. And, you know, waiting till November in government terms, that's like a flick of a tail. So I think that makes sense.
It's not
to
just
me.
diversity in incomes, it's diversity in housing types we're trying to create too, so.
And so I just wanted to ask a question. The ones that we already have approved, do you know what the estimated time of delivery?
I am not sure. You know, the whole industry is plagued by its own chaos right
The
now.
developer's here in the room.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's signed up for public comment, but yeah,
I
he
don't
could
think
speak to
so.
that. I did want to just tell you really quickly also that somebody asked once in the last couple of months, like, well, there aren't any others proposed, you know, but actually I have heard some, not this developer, a different developer, but people are considering them, so it's not, don't feel like, I'm not telling you how to feel. It's not just this developer. There may be other people thinking about this and affordable housing in the community, so just.
And thinking about a Luigi to make their stack work.
Exactly, so, and I'm not trying, in a way, I think that's all the more reason to really
evaluate
delve
it,
into
yeah.
it and understand it.
And we think we're gonna do this year, you know, this whole policy's up for revision this year, so it's soon come.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
added shades to the conversation. I appreciate that a lot.
And at this time, I'd like to ask if anyone would like to make a motion.
Well, we got public hearings, public comment, we got one public commenter. Yeah, Nina, I'm sorry, yes, okay, hold on, just a minute.
Yes, we do have one public comment. Nina Tovich.
Excuse me, Vice Mayor, because this is not a public hearing, we actually do need a motion a second before we can open it up to public comment.
I make a motion. To say the whole thing, thank you, Kim. Sorry. Make a motion to recommend that City Council temporarily suspend consideration of land use incentive grant applications for micro apartment projects until the policy is revised and includes standards for micro apartment projects.
Okay, and thank you. And at this time, we'll open public comment. And
I'll
first
second.
Speaker is Nina Tovich. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Thank you, Nita. Okay.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. My comment on this motion has to do with the name of the Luigi grant. It's a land use incentive grant. The goal is to develop more affordable units. I understand the rationale for suspending this. I think it's good. I'm delighted to hear that there's a process in place to look at the Luigi grants as a whole to determine how best to formulate specifications for them going forward. This is a new configuration for Asheville. Keeping in mind the notion of incentive, I would urge you in the process of investigating how you want to structure these grants going forward, that you consider other less traditional forms of housing, co-housing, communal spaces, communal dwellings perhaps with a central cooking, meeting
That's what
use.
this is.
Yes, but I'm not talking just about an apartment building, but perhaps a small community. In other words, there are many ways that people can live together in housing that could be affordable, that you could incentivize through Luigi. So you have an opportunity while you're reviewing the way you structure these grants to consider a broad range of less than traditional housing structures and organizations. And when you do that, and then you provide a way to incentivize them, then people who might otherwise not be able to produce this kind of housing for themselves, now they can. I guess what I'm trying to suggest to you is that you expand your portfolio of affordable housing options to include ways of having people live together in community that don't necessarily look like people in an apartment building or single-family dwelling or what we're used to seeing. And that may produce more affordable housing more quickly and perhaps even more successfully and more enjoyably for our residents. Thanks for your consideration this evening.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
There is.
We have one more speaker signed up.
Okay.
Vice
Oh,
Mayor.
did they just sign up? Is somebody? Okay.
Snuck in.
David Moritz, please.
Thank you. I wasn't originally going to speak since it's not directly related to my project, but I thought I'd make myself available for any questions related to microhousing, because as of today, I think my projects are the only microhousing projects that have been proposed for the city. You know, our motivation in doing this is to try something different, because what we've been doing in the past is not currently working in terms of affordable housing. And we have a unique situation in Asheville that may be similar to San Francisco, is that we have very limited land. We're surrounded by mountains. We have 7,000 acres allocated to the Biltmore estate, which is not affordable. And a friend of mine has built 10 of these in Seattle, and it seems to work, and it's very popular. And I do agree. I think more study is a good idea. I don't have any problems with that. And I think the more we can find out, the better. I do think there is a lot of information out there. My partner has built 2 recently in Nashville, and they're extremely popular. They generally get leased up even quicker than traditional garden-style apartments, because it does provide certain things that people are looking for, one of which is that all utilities are included in this type of development. It's furnished, and so people can move in. It's very flexible. Some of the benefits I just wanted to make of this development are that, you know, as you mentioned, by its nature, it's somewhat affordable. We're building smaller units. The intent there is so that the rental rates will be lower. And, but it's still, because we're building downtown, it's still pretty expensive. And to answer the question about our first project, we're still negotiating with contractors to make it work. The pricing we're getting now to build it is about double of when we first started. And that's something that's just happened more recently. And building downtown is expensive, but it is the much more sustainable way of development. And it's something that, as you see the temperatures going to 115 degrees in Dallas, we all are interested in sustainability. And I think sustainability is one of the key reasons that this project is important, this type of project, because it's downtown, it's walkable, and it's an urban form of living. Each room does have a kitchen, it does have a bathroom, so it's fully contained. Each floor has a common area and a common full kitchen that is meant to foster interaction, which is another reason these type of projects are very popular. So we think it's a great product. We're okay with more study in it, but we're going to try to proceed with our projects as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
If there are any questions related to my project, I'd be happy to answer.
Just one quick comment that if there are studies available in these other cities you're aware of, could you email them to us?
Okay. And that closes our hearing at this time. So at this time, I'd like to, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. And at this time, see if we have some people for general public comment. Okay, and it looks like we have 7 people sign up. And like to let you know that you have 3 minutes. Please watch the light on the lectern. Green light means go, orange means you're getting close to the end, and red means your time is up. Okay, at this time, our first speaker will be Mary Sanders.
Good evening, Mary Standard. I'm actually a resident of the Montreat Black Mountain community, so glad to be here. I come with good news, an invitation, and a bit of Buncombe history. First, I would like to invite all of you on the council, the staff, and the public to save the date. 2 p.m. Saturday, October 21st is the date. The event is the unveiling of a state North Carolina historical highway marker for the Allen School, which has played a large part in the Black community of Asheville and Buncombe County. Where is this marker going to be? It's going to be right in front of the Buncombe County Register of Deeds office. And there's going to be a reception from 2 to 4:30 at the site of the Allen School, which is at 27 College Place in Asheville, just about a 10-minute walk across Charlotte Street. And this is going to be hosted by Explore Asheville, which just happens to be physically located in the original buildings of the 1950s of the Allen School. So it'll be a wonderful event. I'll be following up with an email to each of you to remember this and to share it with others. And I'll use the rest of my time to share a little bit about the Allen School for those of you who are not familiar with it. 3 words best describe it: Black, female, and college-bound. The Allen School was founded in 1887 by Presbyterians, Quakers, Methodists, Blacks, and whites. Its mission was to educate Asheville's Black community, with the first class opening with 3 generations enrolled in the elementary school curriculum. By the 1897 or so, its mission was to provide a boarding and day school for Black females. Again, it's located just across on Charlotte Street at the foot of Bowcatcher Mountain. The importance of the Allen School is little recognized despite its importance. We all know about the YMI, and we all know about Stevens Lee. But basically, its role in educating young Black women during the earliest 20th century was when a time was an educational desert for both women and for Blacks. It was accredited in 1924 with its integrated staff living and working together. Yes, both Black and white living together in downtown Asheville in the Jim Crow town. It closed in 1974 as codified segregation was fading, with more than 1,100 Black females passing through its doors. Among its graduates included many local people, including Black Mountain, Mary Othello Burnett. Perhaps you know of Nina Simone. And then, of course, there's Monroe's Dr. Christine Darden, mathematician and member of NASA.
Thank you, Mary.
Andrews Ann Woodford, award-winning artist and author.
Thank you very much, Mary. Appreciate it. Thank you. And our next speaker would be Joy Holloman.
Hello, and thank you for welcoming me here tonight. I've been experiencing the condition of being without shelter most recently since February 28th of 2023. Although I have been a citizen here of birth since 1975. Conditions leading to these factors were beyond my control. However, since I began the journey this leg, I've witnessed many opportunities that could be easily and quickly alleviated by opening a monitored tent area open to the homeless. Here, we could have a clear area that would allow efforts to feed and assess the needs of this part of our population without a constant need for roving maintenance, such as med needs, assessing documents, and possible medical issues that could be of effect to our population. I would suggest an open field area with staff to monitor behaviors and transportation routes and movements, such as being on the bus line. It's affordable and it would help a lot of them reconnect with a society which either they have chosen to walk away from for their own reasons or are struggling to integrate with. It would need to be an open area with tents kept clean and active roles of peer support and mobile support. I have actually assessed a fractional cross projection for such an area and am asking for land with bathroom facilities made available. We've all experienced change, and I feel the dignity and respect of these of different privilege has been severely violated. I would ask to be appointed a direct representative for these proceedings, as I'm in communication and contact with this area of the population on a daily basis. I also am in good standing with many organizations in our community and have prior experience in conducting and reporting proper use of finance and proper record keeping, which has been an issue in the past with such organizations. I'll be happy to meet with anyone who is also of a concerned mind on a personal basis. As a preliminary estimate, I priced a small encampment supplies for approximately 30 people, and that's just 30 people, with shelter, full generators, tents, and a communication system that would be allotted to that for only $3,500. And that's with the land donatable. And I understand that we're all working towards the effort to alleviate the situation, but there are needs that need to be met immediately.
Thank you.
For hearing my voice.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Paul Howell.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members, city manager, city attorney, and of course Maggie, the glue. I'm not too festive this evening, so let me go ahead and get to what I gotta get to and get out of y'all's hair. I want to know if the city is pleased with what was implemented by the city events manager through MLK and Dr. Joseph Fox to pass for our Juneteenth celebration. I'm disappointed because what wasn't broken got broken because the city wanted to have control of the event. Y'all took control of this event, and everything that this event shown was implemented through y'all city event manager. I wasn't sure what the city event manager does, so I looked it up. And what the city event manager does, not city event, community event manager does, they are to manage the event budget, design the event and marketing strategy, master event management software, manage all events teams, and analyze event success. Also, I want to see what event teams are. Event teams mean the internal stakeholders that are or could potentially be affected by the occurrence of an event. So now knowing this, I'm asking myself, why was this man put in charge of the event? No, why was a white man put in charge over black people at a black event for the city? I mean, the event manager has nothing to do with the on-site happenings of the event. When I arrived to work for Dr. Fox and MLK that Saturday morning, I was not expecting to be told by John Philman what I'm supposed to be doing and where I'm supposed to go and all that. That was not part of my program, part of my agreement. The event was cursed by this action. God, I got so much. I'm just so upset. Trying to get out there. I'm going to leave that right there because I'm going to get to this other part for my 3 minutes up. Nobody plans a family event for kids and don't have nothing for the kids to do the whole doggone thing. There was nothing for the kids to do at this Juneteenth at all. I suggested bouncy houses. But we can't do that because they blew away in Polk County. I suggested the art station, the painting faces. Well, we couldn't do that because we didn't show up. Nobody showed up. This event, I think, is lost for the city. I mean, the people have lost faith in the city. I don't know what to tell y'all, but I'm just really disappointed that y'all allowed this to happen. This don't make no sense. Them kids didn't have to go through what they had to that day, getting shot and all. None of that had to happen. If we didn't have something for those kids to do, we didn't have consideration for the kids. I'm sorry I was a part of it, but I had to keep my hands on it. But we had nothing for those kids to do. And this is on us.
Thank you, Paul.
Adults.
Our next speaker will be Jonathan Wainscott.
All right, hello, Historic Council. And the war against the sexes, as reported by the Huffington Post, Women are calling out men for weaponizing incompetence to avoid household chores, and I think that this is just a little bit overboard. The trope of the slovenly, lazy male domestic partner is as tired of a trope as this poor lass who's being subjected to this medieval torture device known as the ironing board. But I do want to talk about some disparities between the sexes that I don't think gets nearly enough attention. Let's start with occupational fatalities. Men own 90% of that. We go to work and we die doing our jobs at 90% of rate. Suicides, we die by our own hands at 80% of that rate. We get killed to death by other people's hands 80% of the time. And this big blue section here is black men, and that other next biggest section is white men, and the total together is 40%. We also dispense a lot of violence. We absorb a lot of bullets, and we shoot a lot of them as well. And we own 96% of the mass shootings. Get in trouble a lot, and so 93% of the prisoners in this country are also men. And so where do we go for help? You know, if we need mental help, psychologists, only 31% of us, psychologists are men. So, you know, there's not a lot of help for us to get in the first place. 89% of public elementary teachers are women, and the success that we've seen in education in my lifetime, having been born in 1970, is pretty astounding. Male and female college graduates became equal in 1981. That was 42 years ago, and this is a graph of that timeline. When I was born, the number of male students and associates through PhD outnumbered women 2 to 1. And now that disparity is absolutely opposite. So, you know, who is getting the help? As you have probably heard, hurt people, and men are hurting. A lot of people, and men themselves are hurting. So I would submit that it is men in this society, in this culture, who need the most help. Men are in crisis. Men are in crisis. Absolutely. And please send help. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nina Tovish. Next speaker will be Christina Dupush.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. The orange is bad.
We're in orange. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, council members and staff. My name is Christina Dupush, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. This is the first public place that I am able to announce that I am the president of the Asheville Pickleball Association, that is formally a nonprofit organization, and we are in business.
Woo-hoo.
And I'm here tonight, all of you, we hope received some email that was a press release, also a link to our website, and we are very excited for you to be part of that. On behalf of the Asheville Pickleball Association, I would definitely like to thank you for your inspiration, your support, and the things that you've done with us over the last year. I've been up here several times. I've sort of missed being here after being here tonight. It's like I need to go find my people, you know. So, but you know, just a couple of things that most of you know through your direction and inspiration and assignment to some of the staff. We had several meetings with the Tennis Association, and from those conversations, we now have 22 dual-line public courts, which is great and huge. And I think if the rec staff, I don't know if they're still here or not, would tell you that they are fully being used all the time, and we are most grateful. We are also very, very grateful for the funding and the money that you found within your budget. When I listen to the topics every time I come, it's just, as a citizen, it's just so humbling, and I always feel a little guilty that I come up here and talk about pickleball when you're trying to make these huge decisions. But we are so grateful for the money you found and the phenomenal quality of nets. I know one of our great pickleball leaders made that recommendation, worked with Wayne and different people to find those, and you bought those, and those are on the courts. And we have people, I had a guy from California reach out to me this week and wanted to know about the nets, and of course I hooked them up with the recreation staff. So I wanted to just, and this is Parks and Rec Month, so there is a really great thing, another thing for you happening in your community. So we are official, we are ready to go, we are your partner, we are looking for partners. We have got to figure out something to do in this phenomenal community that is a destination from people really all over the world. And it is really, pickleball is just, it's a wonderful thing in the same sense. It's also an eyesore for us because we don't have the dedicated courts. I did want to just share with you our mission. The mission of the Asheville Pickleball Association is to become a community partner that promotes the growth of pickleball through the educational clinics, competitive leagues, tournaments, and social events, and that advocates for new construction and or improvement of public pickleball courts. As you all will know, and it's not just because I represent this wonderful sport, but this sport is continuing to grow. Recent numbers over the last couple of months were 8.9 million people. We know that number has been just blasted wide open and is much grander than that. One of the things I would really like to say, when this sport started, it really had a reputation of being for wonderful senior citizens like myself and other people. We know that the age group is dropping. We're seeing that in the 30s now. Of the age range of people who were playing. When we had our board meeting last night, several of the players who were board members were talking about, you go to the courts today and it is a lot of young people. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Our last speaker will be Albert Mabin.
Good evening. This is my first time attending a city council meeting. And that's the reason that I'm here tonight, is because I wanted to present myself to you in person. I've seen you on television, but I've found so far that being here in person, it's more real. I've heard a lot of things about housing and developing and things of this nature, but I'm here for a different reason tonight. I'm here because number one, I'm a citizen of Asheville. I was born here in Asheville. I graduated at Asheville High School, right across the street from where I was born at. I'm a true native of Asheville, but I'm also the president of the union here of Amalgamated Transit Union. I represent the Asheville City buses. And my concern tonight is some of the safety issues that goes on with the buses. I know that you all have a lot of issues going on, but I just wanted to share, as a citizen, as the president of the union, some of the safety issues that goes on the buses is some things that I think that, and I would ask that the city council consider hearing some of the issues. But there's a contract between the company that I work for and the union that I represent. But because we work inside of the city of Asheville, I feel like there may be some issues sometimes that the city doesn't know about. Mm-hmm. And if they knew about these things, I think there's a barrier between, because I know that there's a contract between this company that I work for and the union that I represent. But there's a barrier because the city is not aware of some of the things that are going on. And I think if I was allowed to offer some of the ideas and suggestions that are going on that I feel that the city does not know about, I think that could enhance some of the safety issues that I'm really concerned about within the company. All of us here tonight are here for the purpose of making things better. We all have that responsibility. I hope everybody here feels the same way. In order to make things better, I think we all need to be in some kind of forum where we can all hear each other. And some of the things that I feel like I could share may not be positive, but they are positive, but they might not be. The purpose of some of the negative things that may be said is to address those issues and make them right. That's constructive criticism to actually make things better. And I'm here to make things better. I'm asking you all to consider working with me. And I'm here to also, in conclusion, offer myself, offer my experience, and offer my concerns to get to meet with you all, to know you all, to have some kind of forum so that we can discuss issues and make things better for the citizens that we represent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that our last public comment?
That's our last speaker for this evening.
Brad, could you, in regards to that, I've worked with unions and contracts for a long time. Can you inform us later via email if there's anything we need to know, if we can discuss with this man, if there's any?
Yeah, we can certainly talk more in depth. I will say that there are limitations in North Carolina about municipalities participating in collective bargaining directly with unions.
Right.
However, there's only minimal limitations on gathering information about the resources and services being provided. So I think there are some avenues where you can do that.
That's awesome. Great, thank you.
If we do something like that, can we also share information with whoever would be participating about the ARPA fund application that was meant to address safety at the transit center? I think maybe it's possible that because there are things that we don't know about what's going on the bus, it's possible also that our staff might not know some of the solutions that we've already reviewed, but haven't yet implemented.
Absolutely, and I would direct those conversations to the manager sitting next to me, and I'm sure she'd be more than interested.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. This is something I'm really interested in learning more about. We have to have a great transit system, and if we need to hear some stuff, and I don't know if that's like a PED conversation, otherwise I'll follow up. I'd love to talk with you more, but it sounds like a lot of open ears right now.
So I've asked Rachel Wood to work with Kim Putnam and Jessica, and we'll be scheduling a meeting with him for additional information and concerns that he may have.
Great. Thank you.
And this evening, we have a closed session. Someone do the...
All right, y'all ready? Lots of numbers. I move that the Asheville City Council go into closed session for the following reasons. 1, to prevent disclosure of information that is privileged and confidential pursuant to the laws of North Carolina or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1. The law that makes the information privileged and confidential is North Carolina General Statute 143-318-10E. Number 2, to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the city of Asheville, including on a list of potential economic development incentives. The statutory authorization is contained in North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4.
Thank you. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We'll need a second and vote on that motion.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.